Now that we've seen how important compliance is to an industry, now that we've seen how important it is to stay compliant to the industry standards, let's see how NCM can help you with that. So in NCM, we have the default compliance policies like SOX, HIPAA, PCI, and Cisco iOS policies. So these are the basic industry standards that any business needs to stay compliant to. Now, on top of this, you can also create custom policies. On top of this, you can also create custom policies to suit your businesses. For example, certain businesses will have the policy where SNMP should not be enabled. So when SNMP is enabled, it might open the business for vulnerabilities. So you can create a rule which says that the SNMP should not be enabled. In that case, whenever you run the compliance check for that particular rule, you will be able to identify wherever the SNMP is enabled or wherever the SNMP is enabled. Now, not only this, you can also create custom policies and rules for monitoring purposes. Let me show you an example for that. So, you have routers in your network. So, these routers will have interfaces which will be connected to devices. Now, these interfaces decide the speed in which the internet has to work on these particular devices. So, this particular allocation of speed for each interface has to be set. If this speed is not set, then there will be a fluctuation of speed for the devices that are connected to that particular interface. Now, to run a check if all the interfaces have the speed set in the router, you can use the compliance rule. Here you can see that now this is where we create the compliance rule for this particular scenario. So in a configuration file of a particular router, each interface will start with interface and will end with an exclamatory. So here we are defining the block within the configuration file which NCM has to check. So the block has to start with interface and the block has to end with an exclamatory mark. So you do not want NCM to run check on every interface which is there in the router. You only want to check the interfaces which are active. For this scenario, you can give an additional block criteria that says the block should not contain the word shutdown. So NCM will run a check throughout the configuration file. It will identify blocks which starts with interface and end with exclamatory. And if that particular block has the word shutdown in it, it will exclude that block in that compliance check. So now that we've defined the block for the compliance check, we are going ahead and giving the actual condition for that particular rule. So we need to know if the speed is set for that particular interface. So that interface should contain speed and followed by some variable. So since it's a variable, we're using regular expression. So now once you run this compliance rule, it will show you how many interfaces are in compliant with this particular rule, which means how many interfaces have the speed set in them and how many interfaces are in violation to this rule, which means how many interfaces do not have speed set in them. So by running this simple rule in your network, you'll be able to easily identify the interfaces in which the speed is not set and you can easily rectify it.